The year's 1984, and Hall of Famer Ted Williams is in Norristown, Pennsylvania for a card show. Along the way, Williams stops by a friend of a friend's house to watch their son take some swings. This is Mike, a 16-year-old first baseman. Williams had high praise for Mike.
I'm going to tell you the truth. I think I hit the ball as good as he does when I was 16. Now, I'm not holy. This kid hits the ball harder than I ever did at 15, 16.
But nobody else saw the potential that Williams did. Fast forward 4 years to 1988. The Major League Baseball draft kicks off in New York City. Now, the MLB draft is unlike any of the other Big Four sport drafts. It has more than 3 times as many rounds, and drafted players aren't expected to make an immediate impact. Most will take several years to even get to the major leagues. One of the things baseball's draft does have in common with the other sports is that after you get past the early rounds, the value of the players drops drastically. The average wins above replacement for players drafted after the 5th round is less than 0.4, and only 10.4% of those players even make it to the big leagues. But if we look at the WAR for every player that has ever been drafted, we find some hidden gems in the later rounds. 49th round draft pick Placido Polanco is a multiple-time All-Star. Paul Goldschmidt and Buster Posey both won MVPs. And Steve Rogers accumulated over 150 wins with a career ERA right around 3. But these guys don't really count as low draft picks. All of them ended up getting redrafted 2 to 3 years later, much higher than they were originally drafted. Posey and Rogers going in the 1st round, Goldschmidt in the 8th, and Polanco in the 19th. There is, however, one player who was drafted later than all of these guys, and unlike them, he not only was drafted later, he never got redrafted. His 62nd round placement was the best he ever got. No team earlier than that ever took a chance on him, and many consider him to be the biggest steal in MLB draft history. Oh look, it's Mike. Mike Piazza was never supposed to be drafted in that 1988 draft. Despite hitting for a Ted Williams-esque .364 batting average his last year in college, nobody wanted him. Scouts said that he lacked knowledge for playing first base, needed to improve his defense, and struggled to make contact at the plate. But as is often the case in life, it pays to know people, and Mike Piazza's hometown of Norristown, Pennsylvania was also home to Dodgers manager Tommy Lasorda. Lasorda grew up with Mike's dad Vince, and prior to the draft, Vince Piazza called up Lasorda asking for a favor. He asks Lasorda to take a chance on his son and draft him if no other team did. Lasorda agreed, and with the 1,390th pick in the 62nd round of that 1988 draft, Lasorda followed through with his promise. But Piazza's selection brought a little bit of tension to the Dodgers clubhouse. Many staff members within the Dodgers organization didn't want Piazza. They thought he was only there because of his dad's friendship with the manager. And after Piazza had a tryout in front of Dodgers scouts, the scouting director Ben Wade told Lasorda directly that they had no interest in signing Piazza. Up until this point, Piazza had been marketed as a first baseman, and despite looking good at the plate, the scouts deemed his offense inadequate for a first baseman, which traditionally was a position that required hefty offensive output. Wade said that they would only sign Piazza if he played a more specialized position like catcher.
I told the scouting director, then sign him, he's a catcher. He said, no, he's not a catcher, he's a first baseman. I said, he's a catcher now.
After a brief stint to learn how to play catcher at the Dodgers Academy in the Dominican Republic, Piazza returned to the States to begin his journey through the Dodgers farm system. His stats in Single-A were not indicative of a promising future star. He batted .268 and .250 during his first 2 years playing Single-A ball, and he had nearly as many strikeouts as hits, which in the early 90s was not a common occurrence. After 1990, Piazza's struggles led him to walk away from the sport. He went back to Norristown and gave up on baseball. It took a visit and a pep talk from former Dodgers star Reggie Smith to convince Piazza to return. And when he did, he came back with a vengeance. He had a chip on his shoulder and wanted to prove that he wasn't just a product of nepotism. He deserved to be there. His 1991 campaign saw drastic increases in batting average, OPS, and home runs. And the next year in 1992, Piazza's meteoric rise was in full effect, going from AA to AAA, and on September 1st of 1992, he made his major league debut.
There's a drive to right center field by Piazza, his first major league hit.
During Piazza's full rookie campaign in 1993, he put up historic numbers to the tune of 35 home runs, 112 RBIs, and a .932 OPS, which led to a unanimous Rookie of the Year award, a top 10 MVP finish, and his first All-Star selection. Little did they know that the 1,390th pick would work his way to not only one All-Star game, but 12. including 10 consecutive to start his career. Throughout those 10 consecutive All-Star appearances, Piazza established himself as one of the best hitters in baseball. He was top 10 in home runs, RBIs, and batting average during that span. But this doesn't do justice to just how much of an anomaly Piazza was. Catchers aren't supposed to be able to hit well. The position is so specialized that, much like pitchers, catchers focus a lot of their energy on position-specific drills. Learning how to frame pitches, throw out runners, and communicating pitch sequences are all part of the job description. Sometimes hitting isn't the focus for catchers. And if we take a look at the on-base and slugging percentages of every qualified player from 1993 to 2002, we can see that catchers generally perform worse offensively compared to other positional groups like outfielders or first basemen. But not Piazza. He was right in the mix with the best hitters of the 90s, comparable to guys like Alex Rodriguez and Ken Griffey Jr. But let's say we did compare Piazza to only the other catchers. His home run total of 346 was 135 more than the next highest. His RBIs exceeded the next highest by 271. His batting average was 14 points higher, and his OPS was nearly 100 points higher than second place. No other catchers were in the same dimension as Piazza's offense. His best season came in 1997, when he batted .362 with 40 home runs, 124 RBIs, and an OPS that was higher than Frank Thomas, Mark McGwire, and Barry Bonds. His 201 hits that year were the second most ever by a catcher in a season, and those 201 hits really showcased his power. He became one of just 5 players to ever hit a home run out of Dodger Stadium. Piazza's streak of consecutive All-Star appearances ended in 2003, largely due to injuries keeping him off the field. But he was able to tack on a couple more All-Star appearances in 2004 and 2005 before winding down his career, ultimately retiring after the 2007 season. When it was all said and done, Piazza finished his career top 10 in nearly every major offensive stat among catchers. Mike Piazza's journey to the big leagues was unconventional to say the least. From receiving the utmost praise from Ted Williams, to being overlooked in college, drafted as a favor, quitting baseball entirely, and leveraging the chip on his shoulder to become one of the best hitting catchers of all time, Mike Piazza defied the odds. And in 2016, his efforts culminated in the highest honor in baseball. As he stood alongside first overall pick Ken Griffey Jr., Piazza was elected into baseball's Hall of Fame. His story forever memorialized as one of resilience and perseverance. And it adds to his legacy, cementing himself as both the lowest drafted player to ever make the Hall of Fame and one of the biggest draft steals of all time.
And Tommy Lasorda's got to be happy, along with his dad Vince Piazza looking on. Sure, I knew my son could do it all along, he's saying.
If you made it this far into the video, thanks for watching. Here's another interesting stat. Over 95% of the people watching these videos aren't subscribed to the channel, so if you're liking the content, consider subscribing, and I'll see y'all in the next one.